Use 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Good evening, you're with GB News, and our top story tonight. The UK is sending spy planes and 2 Royal Navy ships to the Eastern Mediterranean in new plans to support Israel. The aircraft will begin patrols tomorrow to track threats to regional stability, such as the transfer of weapons to terrorist groups, according to Downing Street. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, adding the military support would prevent further escalation. And we're told the British Armed Forces will be on standby to deliver practical support to Israel and partners in the region and offer deterrence and reassurance. Well, the government's also been busy organising flights for British nationals in Israel, with the first flight still due to leave Tel Aviv tonight. The Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, urging British citizens who wish to get out to register their presence in country. Those eligible have been told not to go to airports unless they're told to do so. Meanwhile, the Palestinian president has condemned violence against civilian populations. As rocket fire tears through buildings in Gaza City, Mahmoud Abbas said the killing or abuse of civilians contravenes morals, religion and international law. His comments come as vital medical supplies run dangerously low in Gaza City. The International Red Cross has warned the situation is deteriorating hourly. The only remaining power stations stopped working yesterday and fuel supplies for generators are low. Well, also tonight, Israelis have held a candlelit vigil for the victims of the terror attack by Hamas on their country. Dozens of onlookers could be seen gathered around a fountain, lighting the circle of candles and comforting one another whilst reciting prayers. One of the people who donated the candles for the vigil says each flame donated represents each of the victims of the attacks. More than 1,300 Israelis have been killed since Saturday, including 200 soldiers. Meanwhile, more than 1,400 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli strikes. Now, in Paris tonight, French police have been breaking up pro-Palestine demonstrations after France's Interior Ministry banned all marches on the grounds of national security. Gérald Darmanin also said that foreign nationals who break the rules will be deported from France. Jewish schools and synagogues have also been protected with a visible police presence. And Paris police have tonight begun arresting demonstrators. Pictures have emerged on social media of armed police using water cannon and tear gas to disperse the crowds. Well, in news here at home, Bernie Ecclestone has been handed a 17-month suspended sentence after pleading guilty to tax fraud. The ex-Formula One boss will also have to pay £652 million to HMRC. He appeared at London's Southwark Crown Court this morning after failing to declare more than £400 million of overseas assets to the government. He had been due to face trial in November after he'd previously denied the charge. And 8 new coins inspired by the King's passion for conservation and the natural world have been unveiled by the Royal Mint. The new designs, which will feature on coins ranging from the penny to the £2 coin, will soon start to appear in our change across the UK. The designs are also inspired by flora and fauna, celebrating creatures such as the red squirrel, the hazel dormouse and the common garden bee. You're with GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, taking you through tomorrow's top stories for the next hour. And here to balance out all my correct opinions, we have Josh Howie. There he is, looking happy, and Steve N. Allen, actually looking genuinely happy. So, how are you both? It's obviously dark times, Josh, but you did very well on Nigel Farage's show, I felt.
Thank you very much.
It was good.
It was like I said to him, it was nice to be on before 11 o'clock.
Yeah,
normally they stick us here. I don't think he actually... I've seen him around the office for about 2 years, and I genuinely think he doesn't know what I was doing. I think he thinks I was like a teammate.
Yeah, why is the cleaner on my show?
Yeah.
But it went very well.
Oh, it was you!
And you probably never thought you'd be on a TV show with Nigel Farage, did you?
No, it's mental. Like, 6 years ago, I was marching and Brexit marches and all this stuff, and... yeah, but look...
It's like meeting Darth Vader for you, finding out he's your father.
But no, look, I've obviously been on somewhat of a transformation over the last 6 years.
Yes.
Part of that is there, but this is not, these are not political disagreements.
Right.
As the point I made to him was, this is the different level. I think this is for our society.
Yeah.
But even on the issue of Brexit, people are coming together because surveys have it that people who voted Brexit don't think it's gone well. People who voted Remain don't like it. Those two groups are finally agreeing on something. So look at that, we're all one people.
Good point. All right, let's crack on and have a look at the front pages. So, the Daily Mail has PM tells police to get a grip on anti-Israel hate. The Guardian goes with US promises arms to Israel as UN sounds Gaza warning. The Telegraph, this is the most difficult image we've ever posted, which we'll get onto in a moment. The Sun, shining light, darkest hour. The Daily Express, horrific images of murdered babies show depravity in worst way. And the Daily Star, psycho scumbag bedbugs, hard to say and harder to know why they're doing that story, hiding in our drawers, and those were the front pages. So let's start with the Telegraph, and this is possibly the most disturbing story we've ever covered, I'd say, Josh.
Yeah, I would say maybe, yeah. I mean, there's this thing, isn't it, that just the images and the videos that have been released over the last week sort of become inured a little bit by it, and then they just somehow it keeps on getting upped, the depravity. Let me read the headline first. This is a tweet, which is this is what they're using as the headline. This is the most difficult image we've ever posted. As we're writing this, we're shaking. We went back and forth about posting this, but we need each and every one of you to know this happened. And this is, and then later on, there's I believe, a photo of a baby, a decapitated baby. Why? Why does this need to be paraded? And that is, I guess, look, I mean, obviously, I'm almost like so upset about this happening that I can't grasp that. I can't deal with that part of things. By the way, I appreciate this is meant to be a comedy news show. There will be comedy later on, bedbugs. But I can't fathom that. How do you process this, is what I'm trying to say. What I can process and deal with is these people out there who have just like at every step have denied these stories come out, and then some of the images, basically conspiracy theorists, far left people, Islamists, and so it's not enough for Jewish people, for Israelis to commiserate our dead and grieve for them. We have to somehow, prove it. Like Jews are liars, and we're obviously just trying to, because that's what Jews do, and we con the world and all of this stuff. So that I can comprehend, and it has filled me with absolute disgust of these and people we know sort of playing it down, denying it, whataboutery, and to the point where the Israeli government has had to go on. There you go.
Right.
That's. I'm angry about obvious, but I can't process that anger. This fills me with rage. That's enough to fill me with rage.
Yeah, there's this very disturbing conversation online about, is it true? Was it this number of babies? As if that makes a difference to Hamas. Like, oh, you're saying it was only 30, not 40. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or they only raped and killed women. To me, that's immature. We've seen what they do. We've seen what Hamas are. Do we really have to get into these debate? The debate in itself is absurd. And then, as you said, they've had to come out therefore and post this. What do you think, Steve?
Well, even more annoyingly, the people having that debate won't be moved by the previous discussion or this picture. Some people are so set to their opinion, there is no picture you can put in front of them, no sight that is horrific enough to get them to change their mind. So I take the point that it's almost pointless engaging in trying to move that dial. It's glued. Those people, those conspiracy theorists are down that rabbit hole. I don't know. I know what you mean about should this picture have been released? What is the purpose of it? I don't know. There's a quote in there, the old quote about a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it's Abe Lincoln guy said it's worth 1,000,000, right? And I know what it means. I actually bothered to look at the picture and wish I didn't, but because I know I was coming on here, I wanted to know what we were talking about. And it's a picture that will never leave you, because especially I'm getting too soppy because now I'm a dad, but you see a baby like that, it will always impact you, and it informs you. This is not about proving whether it's true or not. There are no words that could describe how horrible that picture is. And maybe that's why they think they want people to know. They want it shared so that we actually get that sense of the emotional relation to what's happened, rather than just hear some words that describe it.
Anti-Israel sentiment, or arguably anti-Jewish sentiment, is so high that this is what we have to do. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? In order to sort of get people to empathise. Yeah. Like, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
Anyway, look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've covered that well. What more can you say, really? Do you want to cover this about Britain to send warships?
Yeah, I do. I want to say, Britain to send warships in show of support for Israel. Amazing. Well, amazing. We live in a great country. I mean, we've got problems. We was talking on the Nigel Farage thing about, I believe that there is a war also for our liberal democracy. But to see this and to deter Iran, who are some people, there's some suggestions that they were partly behind it, but also we are seeing attacks from Lebanon. Israel is seeing attacks from Lebanon, attacks from Syria. So to keep, America's obviously sending a warship as well. So, but yeah, that's that makes me proud to be British and Jewish and safety to those people.
All right. And they're very keen to stress it's not an escalation. They're going to help with evacuation and so on when they're not trying to escalate matters in terms of the war. We've got to move on, Steve. What's the Daily Mail got?
Daily Mail goes with PM tells police to get a grip on anti-Israel hate as 2 Jewish schools are forced to shut and fears grow over pro-Palestinian protests this weekend. It's unbelievable, isn't it, that somehow things have swung in this direction as opposed to seeing the pictures of the previous papers, as seeing all the pictures, hearing the news. If anything, you would have expected it to swing the other way. I say that as a naive man. I'm sure you disagree, that maybe you would have expected this uprising of additional hate. It just seems like... Look, you could make an argument that having a pro-Palestinian protest is a point of view that you should be able to protest, but right now it whiffs of a bit hate-crimey. Why now?
Is there also a question about people who have been very liberal, and it's very easy for them to say, hey, we need to have a really multicultural society, but then aren't these the kind of conflicts that inevitably result? That's just a question. You don't have to answer that specifically if you don't want, but any comment on this, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, it says here to get a grip on anti-Israel hate. It's anti-Semitism. That's what it is. It's anti-Jewish hate. under the guise of progressiveness, and people chanting, and we've seen it. We saw video footage on Monday. You know, you cannot. The contrast between what I was part of, the visual in front of number 10, Jews silently saying a prayer for our dead, mourning our dead, to the people hanging off lampposts and setting on fire and calling for, saying, oh, boo-hoo, oh, Jews have been killed, and river to the sea and all this stuff. So, and also, of course, this directly affects me. Well, look, these two schools are not Jewish schools at my children. My children go to other Jewish schools. We're scared, man. My wife's texting me. She's scared. Like, we shouldn't have to be... It shouldn't have to be an act of bravery to take your children to primary school.
Right.
And that is what it will be.
Yeah, shocking. Yeah, it's hard to top that. Disgusting, really. All right, let's have a quick look at the star for some, I suppose, light relief, perhaps. Josh.
Oh, psycho scumbag. By the way, it was slightly... but it was nice to sort of not be interrupted and just to be able to say whatever, to go as long as I wanted.
Yeah, well, I don't like to interrupt, especially on these matches.
No, totally. It was like, this is... yeah. But you feel free to interrupt this bit.
Psycho. No, I'm very obsessed about this one.
Oh, yeah, OK, well, you go. You do it.
I can. I'm a bedbug survivor. I've been through this, and now there's stories. The Star's going big on it. These Parisian bedbugs might be heading over here. They are horrible.
The worst kind of bedbugs, really, aren't they?
The French ones. They are, because when the one I was in Whittam in Essex, I rented a room. There were bedbugs everywhere. It was like a hellish 2 months, and then I got evicted from that, which is like being dumped by someone you think's lower than you in the dating scheme. But the worst thing I think about French bedbugs is that when they drink your blood, they probably pass judgment on the flavour. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing where you can go, your blood is insipid beer.
This is the wrong wine to go with this blood. Yeah.
They are horrible little things, and they smell. There's a unique smell to them. I still get the flashbacks of that.
What's the smell?
It's kind of musky, kind of.
OK. All right, well, a bit of bedbug xenophobia there to end that section, but that is it for part one. But coming up, are the FA being spineless over Israel? Are Philip Morris unlikely civil liberties heroes? And did sage scientists get carried away with TV stardom? See you in 2 minutes.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sunday, the 29th of October at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, still here with non-mental lefties Josh, Howie and Steve and Alan. That's my nice...
Thanks, mate.
Yeah,
I think that's the nicest thing he's ever said about us, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we've seen so many mental lefties this week. I'm like, oh, relatively non-mental ones. Oh. But the bar is pretty low. But anyway, let's do the Times. And the police don't have time for every crime. Yet we notice, lads.
Those are the words of the Federation chief. The chairman of the Police Federation, Steve Hartshorn, has revealed that, well, they can't look into all the crimes, including one of his, which is great, because his car was broken in. I mean, he makes a point. You don't actually want the police to look into every crime. It's illegal to deface coins of the realm and notes, but sometimes you want to fold it so it looks like John McEnroe. But those crimes, we don't expect it. In fact, the promise that was made was every reasonable line of inquiry. And I think another way of phrasing that would be doing your job.
Yeah.
So I think you probably want that from the police to do their job. And so this is an argument about the police not having enough time. And then the article goes on to talking about pay rises. Well, I think if there's more money around, we need more police rather than better paid current number of police.
You need worse police, but more of them.
More of them, to at least they could investigate these crimes.
Yeah, I mean, I was slightly reassured that they're not investigating police people either within their own force. You know what I mean? He had a problem within his own force and they still didn't bother. Oh, it's not just us.
Yeah, I mean, but it goes to exactly this, what you said, what is reasonable? Now, his car got broken into or stolen, or something, like, you know, they're not going to swap it down for DNA and this and that. But if you have a burglary and you have images, which is what's happened in the past, and film images captured of the culprits, and that is not sort of chased down, then that would arguably should be reasonably done. You know, so I would say, obviously, there's going to be limits to this, but you know, I hope he sorts his car out.
Yeah, and it points out they can't strike, but then it is quite hard for them to get sacked unless there's a conduct issue. But there is quite frequently a conduct issue, we've noticed. You know what I mean? And that doesn't really help, does it? Because it's like, we can't sack you unless there's a conduct issue. Like, wouldn't help necessarily in any workplace, you know what I mean? Like, you threw a stapler at someone, you're gone. Right?
But if they do strike in general, if an industry strikes, then they send in the army.
Right.
Could actually get some crimes solved. There'd certainly be less crime for that week, wouldn't they? If you're walking down the street and it's just soldiers everywhere.
You're basically calling just for a military police state.
Somehow I think that's happened. No wonder I'm one of the lefties you like. I'm calling for a police state.
All right, we're not going to top that. Let's do the Metro. And remember, the FA are a completely apolitical organisation if you ignore their rainbow shoelaces and Black Lives Matter T-shirts, Josh.
Yes, this is England, or the FA actually, refused to light up Wembley Arch in Israeli colours for the Australia match that's coming up on Friday. And what they've done instead is do this kind of mealy-mouth tweet where they put out and they said, on Friday evening, we'll remember the innocent victims of the devastating events in Israel and Palestine. And when I saw that, I retweeted it basically saying, you know, what we're going to do... we're going to remember the innocent victims of the Manchester Arena attack and ISIS terrorists, or the World Trade Center and Al Qaeda, because this you can just commiserate or one of these things. You know what I mean? There will be Palestinian innocent lives, and that already have been lost, but we can just still go, wait a minute, this was an unbelievable. The worst terrorist incident, and arguably in modern times, certainly in terms of barbarity and whatnot. So there's nothing wrong with just to show your support for Israel, or your thoughts, to give your thoughts to that country. By lighting it up. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they put up the colours of the Ukraine flag. Innocent Russians will still die, but they didn't go, by the way, we want to talk about...
And France, they put up with the...
So it's ludicrous. And, yeah, it's very frustrating. And especially when you look at, I mean, what they said about Black Lives Matter, this is still on their site. They talk about how they support Black Lives Matter and will be supporting players who take the knee, and it's all very clear. So when they got involved with that, Steve, they sort of crossed the Rubicon. They got into politics. Now, they claimed, oh, we're apolitical, it's just an anti-racism movement. Lo and behold, Black Lives Matter, we've seen more and more, is an extremist group. They even, one of the founders has basically called for the eradication of Israel. So So they can support that, but they can't support Israel now. That's what bothers me.
Maybe this is the opportunity to get football out of politics, or politics out of football. But I'm not a football fan, so I have less skin in this game. I look at this entire story and read when they put various lights on various parts of the building. I don't think it made that much of a difference. I don't think Russia would have won quicker if they'd have put some lights up. So maybe we could just get football. I know people have an obsession with football, I don't understand. Just not getting involved in these things.
Well, that would be great, but it's too late because they already have by getting involved with BLM and all the LGBTQ stuff. And my point, Steve, is not that you care about football, but it's what does it say about our attitude towards Israel and the sort of leftism that's encroached upon everyday life.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they should. If they have done various lights before, they should do it now. But could we not take this as an opportunity to realise some of these are just virtue signalling? People sit on this table and moan about virtue signalling. That's what this would be. Let's just...
I don't know if it's virtue signalling. It's signalling for genuine solidarity and for morality.
But would you believe that the FA mean it just by the lights that they show?
No, but
it's like when it's on number 10, when it's across Parliament, that says that this country offers support. But the FA...
I know what you're saying. Maybe it's a football thing. I'm not into football either, but it does mean the game, and it does mean a lot for people, and it does also bring people together.
Yeah, to me, it's not... I'm a football fan, but to me, it's not the main point. The main point is these kinds of institutions, they can give us one type of political message, but they can't give us...
It's the hypocrisy.
It's the hypocrisy and the immorality that you say. All right, dealt with that. Let's do The Guardian. And Philip Morris are lobbying to save your vaping rights. Not all heroes wear capes or can walk upstairs without wheezing, Steve.
Yep, they're lobbying to stop WHO attack on vapes and similar products. It says leaked email shows the firm behind Marlboro cigarettes critical of global prohibitionist agenda. It's so close to saying globalist that nearly people would have taken a drink on the headliners drinking game, but it's not technically what's being said. So this is the tobacco firm who've made loads of money selling us cancer. And they've been really good at lobbying for that. And now they're thinking, wait a minute, we're slowly moving across to battery-operated smoking. That's probably what it should be called. But the WHO are trying, the World Health Organization is saying, well, wait a minute, maybe there should be some restrictions on flogging it to kids, you know, because it's like the Alco Pops of the smoking world. And now they're saying, whoa, well, let's do some more of this crafty lobbying so we can still sell some vapes.
Yeah, but I think it's a tough one for me, sorry, Josh, just because I hate the WHO, but I also hate smoking. Yeah. So to me, as a football fan, a Man United fan, this is like Man City versus Liverpool. But I also hate banning things. Well, not hate banning things, but I tend to not like it.
I think this is absolute genius.
Okay.
They have basically said their position is, if it's mad that we haven't been invited into the WHO here, because we're the people who are going to cut out smoking.
Yeah.
So, but they're going to make money. So that's the thing, because they have their idea is that if you vape, then it's going to be a quick way of getting people off cigarettes. They have now shifted their business model over. They're already making a third of their money through these vapes.
Right.
So they want to accelerate. So the brilliance of it is like going, don't you want people to give up smoking? How can you not? That's what, like they're the goodies suddenly. After causing all this cancer for however many years. I don't mind it so much, the vaping. I hate secondhand smoke. Like, I detest it. But I'm not sure. Is there such a thing as second? Like, friends of mine smoke vapor out. Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think
it's the actual first-hand person, is it? I'm not sure about the second-hand vape. It's unknown. The whole thing's unknown. Vape. It's an unknown.
And also the disposable thing I can understand, and also not advertising it to kids. These are two things I can go. Yeah, that sounds reasonable to ban them.
Yeah. So maybe don't lobby against it. Vaping is kind of annoying because it just means that they have indicated where their breath is. Normally, we're all breathing other people's breath all the time, and you don't know.
Doesn't happen when it's cold as well.
Yes. But walls are pretty. You can't see it beyond like a foot beyond someone, but when they vape, you can smell pineapple
you
about
don't
a mile
want to see
off.
the germs coming out of them.
Yeah.
And they think they're so cool with their smoke rings.
Do you know, actually, one what really bothers me is people who say I've quit smoking. Have you? What have you done? Oh, I vape. You've not. You've just changed the verb.
Get real. All right, let's do the Telegraph. And did sage scientists get too used to being on TV every week? I've heard that can turn people into monsters.
Yeah. So sage scientists had too much enthusiasm for the camera. There's more stuff coming out in the COVID inquiry. And Sir Patrick Vallance basically said that the sage scientists had too much enthusiasm for the camera. And I got to be honest, it's addictive.
It's seducing. You got lost in your own gaze.
It's, yeah. Anyway, so I get it. I get it. Those poor guys, I understand what they were going through.
There did seem, Steve, but they did get a bit into the attention, didn't they? And there is this point, though, I'm going to be very fair to Sage, which I hate to do, but they're saying, well, they were supposed to be independent, so of course they criticised the government. Whereas the government here in these released messages, and Sir Patrick Vallance is saying, well, actually, it's not very helpful to keep coming out and undermining us. Or do you think that was their role?
Well, they don't have to do it straight to camera. Their job is to give their opinion through the actual official channels that they had. But to really be fair to these Sage scientists, and the headline really makes them look like they are egotists who are just finding a camera and shouting an opinion down it, some of them then had to get some help because of the amount of flack they were getting. And that I don't agree with, because if your job is just opine about this and then someone disagrees with you, it'd be fine if they just disagreed rather than, like, your details were leaked and then they felt like they were threatened.
Do you know what really bothers me, though? They held the government to account, but always in the direction of even more draconian laws. So what they were saying here, one of the main people here was saying we should have gone into lockdown earlier, you know, it costs lives. It's like, that's all they had to say. If you were holding the government to account and saying, guys, you sure it's a good idea locking everyone in their homes, catastrophic effects on the economy, on children going to school and so on. But they were like, why aren't we locking down earlier? And leaking that to the press, which made it very difficult for the government to not be draconian.
Yeah, it pushed a narrative that then quickly took over in this country. That to do anything less than that was to murder people, essentially.
Yeah, and that was very unfortunate. And just lastly, the other unfortunate thing is that they made Matt Hancock actually do a good point where he says it undermines us all. If you've seen him on SAS Who Dares Wins, they did a close-up of him on the toilet the other day, which even I thought was a bit cruel, as bad as I hate.
Why have you got it as your screensaver?
Just makes me happy. All right, that's it for part 2. But coming up, prisons are overcrowded, white pupils are struggling, and grunge music is being taught in schools. Maybe those last two are linked somehow. See you in a minute.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to ordinary people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get straight into it with The Independent. And prison overcrowding is out of control. Sounds like our prisons are just too popular, Steve.
That must be it. Minister sets out reforms as prison overcrowding reaches critical point. I mean, don't worry, the police are going to go on strike at some point, which that will then feed down and mean fewer criminals, I imagine. Yeah, it's got to the stage where there's a risk of criminals not being given sentences for a while. The Ministry of Justice has said that it was taking steps to ensure that we can continue to strengthen public protection by locking up the most dangerous criminals. I'll say it again, aka doing your job. That's what you're there for, isn't it? Why is this...
Doing it eventually.
Yeah, I mean, pat us on the back. We will lock some dangerous criminals up. Well done. But there's a bit where the spokesperson from the Ministry of Justice said, this government has done more than ever before to protect the public and keep sex offenders locked up for longer, ending automatic halfway release for rapists and serious violent offenders. Oh, so not locking up some now, it's fine then, is it? You already got some in the bank. All right, brilliant. No, you're failing. Male facilities are apparently at 99.6% capacity. Women's are at 96%. So we should do like Scotland and put men in women's prisons? That can't be right.
Man.
Can't be right. Is that
I've
right?
got that written here.
Oh, really?
I was really excited to do that joke.
Maybe you could say it and clip it independently for your Twitter.
Yeah, I don't. 99% capacity for men and 96% for women. So maybe, you know, they should get some women in...
No, you bottled
Good
it.
joke, man.
You've got to follow through, Josh.
Yeah. I'd have thought that.
The sentence rapists and burglars could be among those whose sentencing is put off. That put me off a little bit, that sentence. I'm like, really, guys? But then again, this idea that, you know, can you really call it a government and people are Labour going to be able to solve this problem? I mean, how do we solve it?
Well, we just let everyone go. No. We build more prisons, and of course this is their sort of... This is an issue that's been building up over 15 years, so into the last Labour government as well. But this is, I think this is, like so many issues in this country, housing, transport, whatever, this is long-term negligence, frankly.
Yeah.
And there are some reasons why, that yes, they are handing out longer sentences for certain crimes and whatever, but the reality is they could see which way these trends were going, and everything just kept on getting pushed back, and here we are now.
Yeah, I mean, everyone talks about the lack of housing. Someone needs to run on build more prisons. I'm going to fill the green belt with prisons. What do you think, Steve?
Affordable prisons. I like it. Yeah, we're all living longer, so these prisoners aren't dying and clearing up some bed space or whatever that narrative would be. Isn't it a fascinating world where Labour are going to end up running on the economy and security?
Yeah.
Crazy.
We're going to build more prisons and reduce tax. It's Labour. Yeah, mental. All right, let's do the Times. And white pupils have got even further behind in schools. Why don't they simply activate their privilege, Josh?
I know. White pupils have slipped further behind since COVID. This is an annual report, the Educational Policy Institute think tank, and what they've shown is that the attainment gap, this is two parts of the story, really, although the headline doesn't, is that poorer pupils and wealthier pupils has widened also in the last few years. You know, things were meant to be moving in the right direction, free school meals, which isn't just about the meals, you also get some other benefits as well. My family's been on free school meal, and you get more than that. There are pupil premiums that are paid to the school, which to help give them extra tutoring and whatnot. And I'm hoping with my next pay rise to, if I get one, to get out of the...
Your next one?
Next one.
I missed an email.
So that's part of it. But of course, this seems obvious. Of course, economic background is going to make a massive difference. Being able to pay for tutors, parents working 2 jobs, not being able to do their homework with their kids for whatever reason. The other thing that they're seeing is these quite large shifts between different ethnicities. So you've got China, which is just Chinese people's absolutely smashing it and basically coming out of secondary school 2 years ahead of their white British classmates.
Yeah, and that's reflected in the workplace because the average Chinese person in Britain has a 30% higher salary than the average white person. So the thing is, Steve, this is just an incredibly unpopular issue. Who's going to run on, let's sort out white pupils? You know, you're going to get called all sorts of things because people don't want to face the reality of this. And I heard a lefty talking about this earlier on GBNews and saying, well, it's not racial. But then what is it? Why are white people so far behind?
Part of it, I believe, is the attitude to education. I think some of it would be solved if we stopped, and this is the background I'm from, where you were mocked for liking learning stuff.
True, same.
Clever was an insult.
At school, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, if you got an upbringing like that,
You
it's
guys
really
are
hard.
such dweebs.
No, we went to state school.
I was such a cool dude.
No, it's because we went to state school,
That's the
and you had to
difference, yeah.
hide it. You were called a brainy and then bleep, and you had to hide it. I got a book out once that wasn't on the syllabus. I got so much abuse, I just put it away, never made that mistake again.
Yeah.
You pretended to be thick, which is obviously very hard for me, but I did it. Sorry, Steve, you just triggered me with that.
No, but I think we've been through the same experience then, where you have to try and hide. Look, there's social pressures. Some people smoke because of peer pressure. You have to act like you're stupid for social pressure. Then, of course, it's going to impact your results. And yet, maybe other backgrounds don't have that same attitude. Let's just change that. That's not necessarily that much of a controversial thing, is it? Just saying, be a bit proud of achieving something for
But
once.
there was that thing, wasn't there, where someone tried to give an endowment to a school at one point and said, well, it should just be for the white people, and he was just got all sorts of abuse, because it's just a hard thing to sell. But that's the reality in this country now, but no one wants to talk about it. Whatever the cause is, no one wants to talk about it.
Yeah, but would that help? So just throwing money at this would just mean there's more money being thrown at people who think education isn't good. You need to just change that attitude. That doesn't require money, it requires something else.
Well, it's what's celebrated.
It's education, that's the problem.
Yeah.
How do you get it?
But it's also what's celebrated within our culture is part of that as well.
Yeah.
So people, I would argue, sort of panellists on TV shows should be revered, I think.
Yes, great point.
Get
Not
rid
sure
of,
how you got there, but I totally agree.
Get rid of Big Brother, because they always vote off the clever ones first. They celebrate stupidity.
You're right, anti-intellectualism, where the genius is, who should be celebrated, whatever Josh said. Let's do the Telegraph now with a story about a jumble sale that went wrong. We've seen this all too often, Steve.
Library books stolen in jumble sale mix-up. Oh, the scenes of devastation. Customers apparently thought there was a sale on where for £1 you could fill a bag full of books in a library, and it was meant to be just a table of ones for sale, and they thought, there's books everywhere, we'll have a slice of this. So they ended up nicking books from this library in West Yorkshire. Look, take the win. It was 2023 and people were in a library. That's not bad. Also, apparently, some of the, there were books they took home. They might read them. You never know. Some of them will just look at it and say, this DVD don't work. But yeah, so apparently there was this sale was on, and a volunteer, Steve McGrath, who volunteered for the Friends of Batley Library, said, far too many people filled their bags with actual library books, even though I was stood there on a balcony ringing a bell. In a library?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that he said he compared it to the worst of all jumble sales. Is there like a sort of hierarchy? Is like the horrific jumble sales throughout history, the World War II of jumble sales?
I know, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I was constantly telling people, but mate, stop whispering.
Yeah, great point.
Those books aren't. Stop taking. And also, just close the doors to the library, lock them in, and go. It's not that hard to stop what they did. And also, they took Lego. It's terrible to do.
Disgusting. And that's the most serious story we've covered tonight. Let's do The Guardian. And grunge music is going to be taught in schools. I've heard the kids to mutter during the verse, then scream loudly about your childhood in the chorus, Josh.
Yeah. So this is grunge and rap to feature in new lesson aids for music teachers in England. Because, if you're a teacher, you just want to be one of those cool teachers. Hey, guys, dudes, come on, let's...
I like music from 30 years ago.
Rock on! Oh, I had a teacher like that who used Bob Dylan poetry to teach poetry and whatnot. But it sort of worked. It was a bit more relevant. This really is about curriculum resources. So there's a company that's popped up during the whole COVID thing, Oak National, and they got their online lessons. And so now it's not just music lessons. They're providing lots of different lesson plans and lots of different types of resources beyond the traditional curriculum, which they're also providing. And some of it is grunge and rap. And look, if it engages children like Dead Poets Society style, then
stick on a video during a slow day. What do you think?
No, as you say, it's not going to engage kids because it's from the 90s. It might as well be classical or late classical period music. It means nothing to the new generation, so it'll be like,
the 90s is very in at the moment.
The 90s were better, but I do think grunge gave us a kind of bad attitude in our generation. So I'm a sort of older millennial, but there's Gen X, there's older millennials, and grunge left this kind of, and also to some degree Oasis, is it worth the aggravation to find yourself a job when there's nothing worth working for? The attitude was kind of apathy and cynicism. I think that was quite bad.
I imagine you as a sort of grungy.
I was too young for grunge, but I think that whole era left us with a bad. Like we talked about before with education, there was a kind of bad attitude.
There was a lot of. I remember that period. A lot of baggy clothes, which I think was annoying because as a teenager, I didn't see the outline of a female form until I was in my late 20s.
No one saw it. Who will think of Steve's pain?
Thank you.
You had a tough childhood, mate.
Fine.
All right. Well, let's finish this section with The Independent with a story about why we should be in awe of ore, Steve.
Good pun for a chemist. I love that. China's got a newly discovered, never before seen this ore, which has got this rare earth metal in niobium, which is great. It's used in steel, basically, but it can also be used for like cyclotrons and stuff like this. The headline makes it seem like the never before ore part is the exciting bit. It's an ore. You've got to break it down and get the elements out of it. It's just that they found more of it. And is it a win? Because it's in China and it means they're self-sufficient for all of the steel that they want to make. Yay!
OK, is this going to help my iPhone last longer?
No, well, possibly, because the using this niobium in lithium-based batteries, or the niobium graphene batteries last longer, they charge quicker, but it will be way heavier because lithium is beautiful. It's really high up on the periodic table, so it can't weigh a lot. Whereas this is down in the transition block, it's going to be heavier. Your phone will last longer, but you'll need a cart to drag it around with.
OK, that's such a Steve line, by the way, on a first date. Lithium is beautiful.
What's the periodic table?
Might take a while.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Josh, any take on this, but from what you just said there, it's almost impossible. Do you want a quick stab at it?
Well, the way I understood it was like when Wakanda found vibranium.
Yeah.
That was my hot take.
I didn't see that film, so no idea what you're talking about. And I didn't... that documentary. And I didn't understand the story either, but luckily Steve did, our resident expert. But that is all we've got time for in part 3. But coming up in the final section, Sir Rod Stewart and a 71-year-old virgin. Thankfully, those are separate stories. See you in 2 minutes.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sunday, the 29th of October at 9 on GB News.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get into it with the Mail. And Sir Rod Stewart may be sailing, but not to Saudi Arabia, Josh. He had a song about sailing.
I see. Very good. OK. Oops.
I got it.
You got it. Yeah, you got it.
The
And you
people
wrote
at home
it.
will be laughing at
They're
that
like,
a lot.
Sailing!
later on we imply that he's sexy, or we think he is, that will also be a song reference.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And Rod Stewart says... Oh, okay, good. Well, that makes a lot more sense.
Legs are quite warm.
I thought he was a footballer. So Rod Stewart, would probably be happy with that, turns down huge deal to perform in Saudi Arabia over human rights and justice. So many citizens there have extremely limited choices. He's right, of course, the LGBT... I'm not going to say the TQ plus part of it, community, women, the press. So, yeah, he's right. But this feels to me, he's 78 years old, and he was offered, he sort of says Qatar offered him like £1 million. And I just think he's just like, I'm rich enough, and this will make me look good.
Yeah, and to be fair, he did admit that. He said, I'm grateful I have a choice whether or not to perform. So many don't. So he did make that point. But yeah,
so many people have to go, perform, take the money, and then come back and complain about it.
And can you blame them? I mean, that's the question. You know, you got the sports washing accusation, of course, but you've got people like Tyson Fury, these boxers go over, make a lot of money. They've been punched in the head a lot for a living. Can you blame them taking the money, Steve?
Almost no. I mean, sports washing I don't think works, because the only thing I seem to remember talking about when the World Cup happened was all of the human rights abuses. So that's the opposite of sports washing, isn't it? It's really highlighting it. No, I think you're right that he doesn't need the money. The way you were setting it up, I thought he was going to say he couldn't be bothered, and thought, I know what to do. I'll just blame it on human rights, get to stay at home in Essex and play with my train set.
Would you take $1 million to go to Qatar or Saudi Arabia?
Yeah,
you'd take it.
Oh, I mean, I desperately need the money. I'm sat here, aren't I?
All right, so we're clear. Would you take it, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah, OK, we'd all take it.
I'll do it. Would you do it for £10,000?
That's a great question. What kind of flight?
Business class. But remember, business class going over on whatever that Airways would be is like...
Emirates or whatever.
Probably,
I'd probably do that.
10,000? 5,000?
If anyone's watching, we're all open to it. Three of us today, we'd like a Saudi Arabia headliners.
5,000?
Yeah. Not sure.
On a week
You've got morals, Nick. You've got morals.
All right, that was... I feel bad about that in many ways. Let's do the Metro.
Would you kiss him?
Let's do the Metro. And it seems we could soon have roads on the moon before we can even solve potholes on Earth, Steve.
This is the science I'm here for.
The one.
Okay. Scientists want to use a massive laser to melt roads on the moon. Yes. I mean, it's like a plot from the animated The Tick, where they sign their name and they try to draw a chair. So the paved roads, landing pads, all of this, by using a big laser to melt all the dust that's up there.
Big smiley face?
Basically, that's what I'd go for. Basically, it's what every 10-year-old boy does with a magnifying glass on a hot day and some ants. The slightly annoying thing about this is they've worked out you can use a big laser to melt stuff into road, but they want to take the laser to the moon. Why? Lasers are coherent photons. They don't diverge. You could do it from here if you had a good enough aim. Obviously, you get it wrong, you slightly miss, you've blown up some aliens. But I say let's do it.
Look, I'm always saying lasers are coherent photons. No one listens to me.
No.
But Josh, can we do this, given that some people think we've not even been to the moon? Matthew's sweet.
Well, I'm not sure if the moon exists.
Great point.
But I'm taking it.
We've never seen it.
I'm going to yeah, I've never
not seen it.
Never direct evidence of it.
Yeah.
Because you work late, that's why you don't see it.
OK. Sounds like we sort of ended that story there, didn't we? All right. Let's do the Times then, with a story I can't believe is this far down the bill tonight. The hay fever problem in Japan, Josh.
Yes, Japan takes the axe to forests to solve its hay fever epidemic. This is quite interesting. It's called kafunsho.
Sounds like sneezing, doesn't it?
Two out of 5 people in Japan, who are affected, or approximately 40% of the population. Just getting in there before Steve does with the science.
Photon.
Yeah, exactly. But post World War II, they they made all these forests for wood and for the rebuilding and whatnot outside of the cities, and they used cypress trees and cedar. And obviously, it turns out that Japanese people, I guess, don't have the natural immunity to the hay fever. So this is what they're going to do. They're going to sort of gradually replace it. And it's a really big deal out there. I want to say a big thank you to Japan. They did a wonderful sort of visual. They sang Sin Shalom to sort of show their support for Israel. So good luck with the hay fever, guys.
OK. Shout out to Japan. Can I just say one thing, Steve? There's a quote here. If hay fever... This is about the Prime Minister. If hay fever is eradicated, the Prime Minister's name will go down in history. That is a well-ordered country with no problem. I envy that. If he solves the hay fever problem, that's their own... Then it's just done. I mean, that is a low-crime country. What do you think?
It makes a lot of sense. The trees weren't even meant to be there. They built them, they planted the trees to build other stuff and then realised it was cheaper to buy in the woods, so just left these trees. Get rid of them. They weren't meant to be there. This is why it's not that they don't have the immunity to it, it's the other way around.
You Mr. Chop-down forests.
Yeah, get rid of them.
Disgusting.
I'm not Sting.
Well, let's move on, because we've got a good one next. In the Mail, with basically a propaganda attack on traditional wives, Steve. That's what I'm calling it.
Trad wives, as they're known, which seems like, I didn't know if it was traditional or tragic. It's a tricky portmanteau word. Mothers who believe that men should hold the power in the family are less responsive parents. You really have to read a lot of this article to work out what responsive parents means, because it just seems like a slight, and they leave a lot of it just saying these traditional role families, and even I'll admit, it just moves from being traditional roles to, there's sexism involved. Instead of just saying that these could be separate, and maybe there's obviously some overlap in that Venn diagram, but they're not the same. But by responsive, they just mean referring to a family's interactions with their children's emotional and physical needs. So it sounds like it's the woman's fault, because he's been at work all day, so...
Good point. I mean, I didn't get the link with sexism at all. I just did a podcast on this, on my podcast, The Current Thing, with Will Noland, who was sacked from Eton, and he's someone who believes in, you know, you should have that. He's a Catholic. Why not have the, the traditional order? It's not saying men are better, it's just the traditional order that seems to work and has worked for families.
But you can, even you, Nick, can work out that if you've got all that embedded sexism, you'll like this format of family. It's not saying everyone who likes this format is sexist, but sexist people will like this format.
It's the family we had for thousands of years. Now it's like sex. It's a bit ridiculous. Well, it's a bit because it's even called tradwives. It's just what used to be normal. But anyway, what do you think?
Well, different societies around the world have different family structures and whatnot. The important thing is that children that they're loved, that they're paid attention to. But yeah, it's... I'm trying to think. I was reading this and I was like, going, this is not my life. And I was like, does that make me a cuck? But I don't know what a cuck means.
I know what would make you on, but it...
OK, is it a sort of word you... OK, fine. I don't know. But my wife and I, we both work, we're both juggling, some do pick up, sometimes, it's just a constant, like, can we just get to the end of the day together?
And the juggling helps as a secondary income. So let's do the Mirror quickly with a story about a man who locked himself in his house to avoid all women, when in reality, all he had to do was have right-wing views, Josh. That's a self-owned joke.
Okay, very good. But they'll cut it out and use it in a certain way. Virgin, 71, so terrified of women, he barricaded himself in his house 55 years ago, and he's basically got this condition where he's terrified of women. It's called gay. Thank you very much.
Gynophobia.
Gynophobia. It's an irrational fear of women. And he gets tightness in the chest, profuse sweating, rapid heartbeat.
Okay.
This is I think basically he probably just used too much Lynx.
Lynx Africa, yeah, great point.
All the women.
Even 16 seconds.
It lives in Rwanda and clearly shows that they have a great attitude to homosexuality. If one response is to just fear women and stay away locked up forever. So yeah, great place to send people to.
They didn't ask him though how happy he is. I'd like to know, sometimes he's asked like happiest man in the world. We don't know. They could have asked. Anyway, a little bit of misogyny to end the show.
Balance.
So the show is pretty much over. Let's have another quick look at Friday's front pages. So the Daily Mail has PM tells police to get a grip on anti-Israel hate. The Guardian has US promises arms to Israel as UN sounds Gaza warning. The Telegraph, this is the most difficult image we've ever posted, that horrible story we talked about earlier. The Sun, shining light, darkest hour. The Daily Express has horrific images of murdered babies show depravity in worse way. And the Daily Star, psycho scumbag bedbugs hiding in our drawers. Very important story, and those were your front pages. So that is it for tonight's show. Thanks to Josh and Steve. I'm back tomorrow with Leo hosting, I believe, so we'll see you again at 11 p.m. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, then of course, stay tuned for breakfast. But for now, for me, it's good night, good morning, and God bless. And we'll see you again tomorrow.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
This time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you. My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sunday, the 29th of October at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The former boss of Hamas has called for a day of rage tomorrow. Now, it's designed to be for Muslim and Arab states, but could there be a spillover into this country as well? We'll debate the BBC. Why on earth will they not call Hamas terrorists? And they refer to them often as fighters, as if there is something noble in what they're doing.